My name is Sophie Lowe, and I have the great honor of serving as the Deputy Director at the museum at Eldridge Street. For those of you who are new to Eldridge, we are a museum that is housed in the restored Eldridge Street Synagogue, and we are also a National Historic Landmark. And one of the things that we are known for is the fact that we are the first grand house of worship built in America by Jewish immigrants from Eastern Europe. And today we continue to tell the story of Jewish immigrant life. We have programs about architecture and preservation, and we talk about our diverse Lower East Side neighborhood and our shared stories and the different journeys. And this year we've welcomed, actually this from 2022 to now, we've actually had guests visiting in person from over 77 different countries. So for those of you who are from all over and not in New York, and even for those of you who are in New York, please, we invite all of you to come to visit us on New York's Lower East Side. We have a full roster of programs this spring filled with some really fun and new exciting programs. And I hope that you'll join us for some of them. Here we have next week a program featuring the story of Irving Berlin. We have a food-related walking tour. And then later on in March, we have a walking tour celebrating Women's History Month, Mamas with Chutzpah, where we'll be walking around the Lower East Side and talking about the women and the people who were able to shape the activism scene, the cultural scene, and also the political scene. And finally, we have an upcoming concert. It's going to be a Judeo-Spanish concert celebrating both Women's History Month and Purim. And we're going to be bringing in the musical group called Alhambra. So you can sign up for our programs. Maya, our public programming and events coordinator, will put the links in the chat. And so just check that if you're interested in signing up for any of those. Now for tonight's Cinema Chats, the reason why you're all here, I want to thank Lucy Shahar for organizing this incredible series. And it is because of Lucy we've been so fortunate to have such an incredible, diverse, and talented array of interesting speakers. So if you want to tune in for our other Cinema Chats, we will be doing Cinema Chats coming up. I believe it's Armageddon time. Lucy will be leading our program for all of this. So we'll include a Q&A session at the end of the talk. You'll have a chance to ask questions then. And in the meantime, feel free to put any of your questions in the chat box and we'll get started. So Lucy, please take it away and everyone enjoy.
Thank you, Sophie. I'll introduce Lisa in a moment, but something happened here where I'm not.
Lucy, I think you just have a different position on your camera. If you go down to if you go down to start video and press the up arrow, there you go. Perfect.
Welcome newcomers and old timers to Cinema Chats. I see many familiar faces and I'm happy to say many new ones. We have 60 people today. Wow. Before I forget, I just want to say that on March 27th, Cinema Chats will, we will be discussing the movie Armageddon Time with the Times chief critic, Stephanie Zarachek. Now let me get to Lisa's biography before we start talking. A native of Los Angeles, Lisa received a liberal arts degree from the Evergreen State College in Olympia, Washington, during which time she volunteered as a 35mm projectionist at the Olympia Film Society and became staff of the theater, directing the town's annual Olympia Film Festival and leading the organization's successful digital cinema conversion fundraising campaign. Lisa went on to work at arts organizations in Washington and later moved to New York, where she worked as a publicist. The Automat, which is incredibly popular, is Lisa's first feature film, which she self-distributed through her company, A Slice of Pie Productions. The film premiered at the 2021 Telluride Film Festival. It played at New York City's Film Forum for 7 weeks before moving to the new Plaza Cinema, where it played for an additional 12 weeks. Her next projects, a narrative romantic comedy set in Italy and a documentary set here in New York, are currently in development. I also want to add, for those who are interested, and highly recommend the DVD of the Automat, which is on sale, and I'll ask Lisa in a minute where. Hi, Lisa, welcome. Congratulations on your great success so far.
Thank
Please,
you, Lucy, and hi to
DVD.
everybody. It's so nice to see how many different places everybody's from this evening. It's not only, New York City folks. It's like we're really all over the place. And actually, I'm coming to you from the Gulf side of Florida this evening. I'm here for the Boca Grande Film Festival, where the Automat's playing tomorrow.
Wonderful. Can you tell us something about the DVD that's available?
Sure, thank you. If you like Mel Brooks, the DVD actually has the full 54-minute Mel Brooks interview as a DVD extra. And there's some other extras, like I'm not necessarily advising that you'd want to do this, but you could watch the film with my commentary, where like I chime in and out explaining certain things as the film's going along. So it was very nice working with Kino Lorber on making a DVD. So that's available. Thank you.
Great. I'm going to ask.
And also available through most public libraries have it. So you can also borrow it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want the audience to know, I'm going to ask Lisa several questions. And then earlier than usual, because I know a lot of you want to comment or ask questions or remember or talk about your lovely memories of the Automat, Sophie and Maya will look at questions that you put on the chat. If you don't want to put a question on the chat and you'd rather just raise your hand, we'll do that at the end of the last 15 minutes. So you have 2 options. Lisa, I know it took you 10 years to make this film. Is that usual, or can you tell us? We'd like to know about behind the scenes things.
Well, I've attended a lot of these kinds of Q&As. I hear the number 7 a lot. I feel like a lot of people take 7 years, especially to make their first documentary. And technically, this was also a 7-year situation, but the film came out in 2021 at the end of the year. So, I mean, really, it's like a 2022 film, but because it came out at the end of 2021, it's like, that's the number. But anyways, so I personally worked on this film in my spare time. It was evenings and weekends while I was, working for arts organizations and later a public relations firm in Manhattan. So it took the amount of time it needed to. And it was just, kind of one day at a time, one step at a time. And if I had known on day one how much work was going to go into it, I wouldn't have done it. So it's a good thing I didn't know it was going to take 7 years.
Okay, Sophie, could you put on slides 10 and 11, please? They're sort of iconic autograph pictures that some of you may recognize. Yes, here, I think the person here is getting baked beans, which was an Automat favorite.
And this photo was a pleasure to discover when I went to visit the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. This photo hadn't yet resurfaced. I think it's from Look magazine, because Library of Congress acquired the kind of the morgue of Look magazine. And it was really exciting to find this, because at the time, I think I found this maybe like 6 years ago, and this image was not on the internet anywhere to be found at that time. So it was a cool discovery. And also, like today, you know how on our phones we can like hold down the take a picture button and it takes like 10 pictures, like real rapid. There's actually like maybe 10 variations of this same photo at Library of Congress. And this one was I like this one the best. But so since Lucy, you mentioned you like behind the scenes stuff, you can find other versions of that photo at Library of Congress.
And here are two more, the very iconic coffee machine with, I think it's a dragon. Is it a dragon or a lion? People always remembered that. And the chicken pot pie.
And for those of you who watch the film, you'll see that the dolphin spout, which people sometimes think is a lion or other kinds of creatures, that it was a very inspired, interesting idea. And we actually had the Italian premiere of the film in September at the Venice Architecture Film Festival. And we did talk about this scene because, you know, this is the connection between the Automat and Italy.
I love it.
Yeah.
Tell us, I'm still curious how on earth you got Mel Brooks and his role in the whole thing, which was very big, and we see him also. Tell us some more behind the scenes things about Mel Brooks, please.
So I started volunteering as a 35 millimeter projectionist in my college town's 1920s movie palace. And eventually I started working there and I was directing the annual film festival. But one of the guests who came through kind of like this, because he was there to talk about his movie, he was Carl Gottlieb, the writer of the movie Jaws. And I was driving him around Olympia, Washington, and I was in charge of his hospitality, and we became Facebook friends. And a few years later, and I didn't even have to ask him, he offered, he found out that I was working on the film through Facebook, and he said, "Is it okay if I tell my friend Mel Brooks about your project? I think Mel would be very interested." And that's how I was connected to Mel. And then Mel did something similar. He said, "I got to tell Carl Reiner about this. Carl should be in the movie too." So Mel, I didn't even have to do anything. So that was really lucky. And then of course, you know, Mel continued, he kept doing, you know, more to help. Aside from the interview and getting Carl, he then also wrote a song for the movie that he performed. And he did even more than what I asked, because I asked him if I could have a song written for him and all he would have to do is come to a studio to record it. And at first he said, "Okay, sure." But then he called me back and said, "You know, I actually started writing something." And he started singing to me over the phone. And, you know, he made it look like such a breeze to, you know, write an amazing song. I don't think it was that hard for him at all. And it's just incredible.
How would you describe his personality? Is it the way it is on TV?
Well,
is he fun face to face?
I would start by saying he's very generous, especially about things that he cares about. I know that he says no to most everything he says no to, but when he cares, you know, he'll do anything. And, you know, I'd say like maybe half of the time it was kind of like, you know, grandfather, granddaughter, but then, you know, half of the time too was kind of a little business like, you know, when he was recording the song, his team sent me several takes saying, we recorded the song, here are the takes, have fun. But I wasn't there for the recording session because he kind of spontaneously recorded. And, I had some feedback, I wanted him to sing some things a little differently. And, so when I called him to ask, is there any chance I could give you like some feedback and we could do a second recording, he was quite angry, but in the end, he didn't have to do any more takes because, as it turned out, he only sent me the very last takes that they did, and they did so many takes. So can you imagine, after like the end of a long day, your last takes aren't necessarily your best ones. Sometimes it's your first ones that are your best, and you might not think they're your best at first. So I got his first takes and they were the best ones. So, but yeah, no, I'd say, because I have a business relationship with him too, because, he's had to work with me on promoting the film, and, he sometimes needs to be encouraged to do things if he doesn't, so, but it's fun. Like, I kind of have to every time I talk to him, I kind of a little bit have to brace myself because he's fast, you don't really know what he's going to say. So that's a lot of information, but I get a little nervous when I'm talking to him.
Yeah, I'm nervous. When I saw you interviewed by, I can't remember who, Mankiewicz, he asked you, and I find this fascinating, when you I know you wanted to interview Colin Powell and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and if I remember correctly, their first answer was no. And he asked you how you deal with the no's, because you did get 2 interviews.
I got so many no's in the process of making this movie. And yeah, but it's true. Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Colin Powell both said no the first time I asked them. And then I contacted them again, and I told a little bit of a fib because I was having the same problem with both of them. And so to her team, I said, look, I have to come to DC anyways. I'm interviewing Colin Powell. And to his team, I said, look, I'm coming to DC anyways to interview Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And then once they knew that I was interviewing the other one, then they said, okay. So, and even just right now before the Zoom call, Lucy knows the Wi-Fi in my hotel room here in Boca Grande wasn't very strong. And the front desk, when I said, look, help me find a room in this hotel with fast Wi-Fi for this Zoom, they said no to me at first too. And I had to push, and now I have a great room with great Wi-Fi. But I've definitely learned, even with restaurants, they say they have no reservations available. So yeah.
Well, apparently you're very good at it and do it charmingly. Sophie, can we have the slides? Just a minute. Yeah, number 6, because we'll talk about Colin Powell. Yeah, I was very happy to find the one on the left because it shows blacks and whites sitting at the same table. And I wasn't sure that actually happened, because obviously you could sit wherever you wanted at the Automat. And Colin Powell talks about that, as you know, if you saw the film, and you see 2 very intent African-American young women at the Automat. Can you tell us about your interview with Colin Powell?
I will also add that I'm pretty sure, I have to double check, but I think the photo on the left is actually Philadelphia. The photo that's really with all the mixed tables. And something interesting that I learned in the, process of making the film was that while the automats in New York were very diverse in terms of gender and immigrant status, for example, it was really the Horn and Hardart locations in Philadelphia that were extremely racially integrated, because the Black population in Philadelphia really embraced Horn and Hardart, and they made it their place. So while Colin Powell did, represent the New York side of the story, it's interesting because if you look at the pictures of, and I think also, if I'm remembering correctly, the picture of the students on the right, I think this is also like a Philadelphia photo. And if you look at the photos that we have available to us inside of the New York locations, you just won't see as many Black customers. So it's interesting. But Colin Powell's interview, it was, I was nervous for that one. He was teasing me a lot, but he was so charming, and it's like he just won everybody over. He was so nice to my team. My mom was there for that interview. It's like, I don't know, like my mom, who, I don't know, my mom was like very swept off her feet by Colin Powell. He was really he was a charmer. And I just wasn't, for somebody who said no thank you to be interviewed, he sure had a lot to say. And I didn't even have to, he just kept all this information about what an important, beacon it was for diversity. I didn't have to ask him to say any of that. He was doing it. And so it was really, I'd say, gratifying or reaffirming to hear that come from somebody like him, or somebody like Ruth Bader. I didn't tell Ruth Bader Ginsburg what to say either. They understood that this place represented something very important in terms of, New York being, the kind of the role model of integration for the country, because, what was going on in New York, and Horn and Hardart was one of many, many, many integrated restaurants, but Horn and Hardart really it represented integration because it was such a massive chain in New York that was so, recognizable. People from all over the world knew about what the Automat was. And this is before there was the internet.
It's truly amazing. I'd like to one more. Yes, you can see kids. I believe it was posed, the one with the two little kids. In any case, yeah, here they are, smiling, getting their pie.
I'd be smiling too if I was about to have that lemon meringue pie.
Yeah,
I wish.
Wasn't that Carl Reiner's favorite, or maybe there was another one?
I think Mel's favorite was the lemon meringue.
Okay.
Or actually, no, wait, no, I think he said the coconut custard pie was his favorite. And if you can believe it, we actually have even more. You'd have to watch the full Mel Brooks interview. He talks about pies during the interview for such a long time, and we couldn't include all of his pie stuff, but he was really enamored by the pies. And I just wanted to get to, George asked the interesting question that I wanted to answer about where you can go today to see a Horn and Hardart Automat location. He asked about New York. I'll start with Philadelphia because we have a really good example in Philadelphia. So the original Philadelphia Automat that was at 818 Chestnut, it is still there, and the facade has been restored and it's beautiful. and it's really a source of pride for Philadelphia.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah.
We had a great theatrical run of the film in Center City, Philadelphia. You know, people were really excited about the movie. So if you're ever in Philadelphia, while you're there, you have to just go check out the Automat, and you'll be able to find it online, or if you ask people, and it's beautiful. But in terms of New York, so there's nothing that's preserved quite as, you know, well as that, unfortunately. There are a few landmarked Automat locations, but you know, it's mostly the buildings themselves that are still there. Like they don't look like Automats anymore, and they don't have signs in New York that say on the marquee of the building, you know, Horn and Hard Art. But there's a City MD location on the Upper West Side that is an original Horn and Hard Art building, and it's landmarked. There's also a Citibank location on the Upper West Side that is landmarked and a Horn and Hard Art location. And I don't know how much longer you'll be able to do this because it's not landmarked, but if you're ever in New York City and you're in the Times Square area, you can go inside of the souvenir shop Grand Slam. And that was the first Horn and Hard Art Automat in New York City. And the room is very much still like this, the same. Most of the original details are gone. But like if you walk inside of the souvenir store and you look at old pictures of the Automat in there and, you know, all the souvenirs today, it looks the same. So, and it's kind of hard to see, but if you look up on the ceiling, some of the original details from the ceiling are still there. So yeah, go check out Grand Slam. But unfortunately, it's not a great situation. Like I'd love to be able to tell you, yeah, go here and you can see a perfectly, you know, kept Automat, but we have nothing like that.
Tell
So
me,
that was
fascinating.
George's question.
Is there another question from the chat here, Maya?
Not at the moment. I would love to invite everyone to stick those questions and comments in the chat if you have any memories that you'd like to share of Automats. Lucy, did you have more questions for Lisa in the meantime?
Yeah, I do. You mentioned when we were talking, or on one of your interviews, Lisa, that you had several sessions where the viewers could give feedback sessions, and as a result of this, you changed a number of things in the film. Can you tell us what you changed or what emphasis you changed?
I think for me, there were like two major modifications that were made as a result of the feedback screenings. We had one big feedback screening at the JCC Manhattan, and we had one at the Maine Jewish Film Festival in Portland, Maine. We did another one in Seattle with there's a gay and lesbian synagogue, which we did it there. And the first big takeaway was to try to end on a happier note, because it's really sad the way that there was this, you know, wonderful thing, and then it all collapsed, and it is a painful, slow decline. And the decline section used to be longer. It used to be a little more negative, maybe even a little bit more pointing fingers in terms of, you know, bad behavior on the part of some of the executives who came in. And as a result, because people in the audience were saying like, it's too sad, we don't need that much. So we worked hard to kind of strike a balance. But in the end, and I think it is important to see the positive, which is, you know, 100 wonderful years of, you know, what the business was able to provide, and, you know, the wonderful kind of memories that it left people with. and some of the important themes that are still relevant today that we can use to guide, future business, ventures, or how we want to live our own lives. Because, the Automat was just such a, it was a model business in so many ways, and people were model people in there, just, citizens of the world, sitting, sharing tables with one another, being pleasant with one another, a business that was offering something good for its customers, that was good for them, for the, to feed their, their body and soul. And it was so affordable. So, it was an everyday luxury for everyone. So, and then another thing that kind of changed as a result of the feedback screenings, there's one character in the movie that people were saying you should pull him. And we did not want to pull him, but we really listened to their feedback, and we worked on making this character a little more likable, because he's a little bit of a grumpy person naturally. And that was Edwin Daly Jr., the son of the president. So we worked on kind of re-editing him so that maybe he would come across as a little bit more, likable or relatable. And now nobody complains about him anymore. But I think it's important to just to have different kinds of people with different backgrounds. And also, he wasn't Jewish. He was one of the few people in the movie that wasn't Jewish. So, and he's a very strong Republican. So, I really valued, if I could do it again, I'd have even more, I'd say people of different backgrounds in the movie. I just think it's so valuable. And also, I love how the movie is really being embraced by all different kinds of people of different viewpoints. So it's very much, the movie's in the spirit of the Automat. Everybody liked the Automat, and thankfully, it's similar with the movie. So I've traveled with the movie to all sorts of places in the country that I never would have thought I'd be invited there to show this movie, whether it's Iowa or Mississippi, or here in Florida, where it's great to to be welcome. The film is really it's been so welcome everywhere.
Let's see, and I can see why. Maya, I think there are a couple of things in the chat.
Yeah, there's been a couple of questions and comments. The first question from a couple of people, Lisa, was how you yourself became interested in automats, and specifically in H&H.
Before I explain that, I will, because it's so fresh, it just happened. Jennifer Lorenzo commented that she liked John Romas, the engineer, and I have an exciting update about that, because you might remember we were sitting at a table with all of his materials, all his photographs, and I've been working on trying to find a permanent home for all those things. And so his children and I went to the New York Public Library the other day for an intake, where the library's archives team they went through the boxes and they looked at everything, and they are interested in acquiring it so that the materials would be permanently housed at the New York Public Library. So I'm thrilled about that, and I hope it all works out. And John passed away while we were making the movie, but he would just be so thrilled to know that that everything he saved is going to be saved forever. Because think about it, so much was lost. Think about, it's like, where did all these dolphin spouts go? It's so hard to, find a horn and hardart dolphin spout or anything. And it's just incredible how little there is left. And then, as some of you might know, so Steve Stolman, who's in the documentary, he's the one that was sitting in front of his laptop. He collects automats. So I don't know if the documentary had anything to do with this, but the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel's upcoming season, they decided to have, they paid for those automats that were on the floor in Steve's barn. They paid to have them restored, looking amazing, and that you will be able to see the things from that barn that looked all bad. They will be looking all nice this spring on the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. So I'm really happy about that. And I also really hope that now that they're going to be looking so much better, that he can hopefully find permanent homes for those things too, because, you know, we want him out of his barn.
I think it's such an important part of social history in the US, the Automat. Maya, if they're not.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I
go
can
ahead.
answer the question about how I got interested in it. So
Right.
I was eating all the time in my university cafeteria, and I was just so curious. You know, I didn't know anything about cafeterias, so I was curious, where did cafeterias come from? Because, you know, I was accustomed to fast food and restaurants, and that's where it all started. I really had a lot of fun in college eating in the cafeteria. And it was in my school library where I discovered the Automat, because I found it in some old, you know, news articles and some books about cafeteria history.
Awesome. And there's two kind of similar comments about memories that people have from the Automat. One is a memory of automats being on basement levels and being underground, and another is the automats, as they started declining, being only opened at night. Are there any sort of, you know, quirks like that, either as the Automat started to decline or when it was in its heyday, kind of trends there?
So you're saying that as they declined, they were only open at night, or they were not? Oh wait, I recall being opened at night. But that okay. I'm not the most expert on like when locations were open, but I do know that there were a few locations that had, you know, much later hours than other ones. And also, I heard in Philadelphia in particular, the Automat used to be a very kind of important, like all night or late night, you know, meeting spot, especially for like artists, musicians. But then the hours got cut back, and then I've heard musicians tell me we had nowhere to go then, because, you know, that was like the latest, you know, one of the latest places you could go. And, the Automats really were they were really helping people out, giving them a place to go. And then it is interesting. I'd be curious to know a little bit more about, you know, why. But it's true. They were in basements, and they were multi-level. And I don't know if anyone in the audience who's maybe has a history background, if somebody has anything to say about, you know, basement restaurants in New York City, but that is totally true.
I think, by the way, Maya, I think you can unmute people now and people can ask questions, not on chat, okay?
All right. Everyone is now able to unmute themselves.
In response to Lane, Lane made a comment about how she can't imagine that Edwin Daly's character came across as unlikable before. But I have to say, we really worked hard to, I love him, and I've made a pact with him. He's been collecting postcards ever since he was a kid. And so I am required everywhere I go to send him postcards, and I'm not allowed to write on them for his collection. So he and I are friends now. But, you know, it takes the editing. We had such incredible editors on this film, and it kind of looks seamless in the end, but you know, it was so much hard work to try to figure out how to tell a story. You know, the story starts in the 1800s. We don't have, you know, film we don't have even photos of that happening. You know, how are we supposed to make that entertaining and funny? And, you know, we wanted also, because I'm younger, I was like, how do we make this interesting for everyone and not just for the customers who went there? And, you know, I'm passionate about, you know, spreading this story and more people learning about it. So, but yeah, no, it's very, it's very possible for somebody to come across as, you know, but thank you for saying that. And let's see if there were any other, thank you. Oh, thank you everyone for the nice comments. I appreciate it.
I know Sophie had a question earlier. She was wondering why it was important to make the son of the owners more likable.
Why was it important to make him more likable?
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. First of all, I'm not I know I'm the director of this movie, but I'm going to kind of answer this question in more of like not a technical way. But first of all, so that people are enjoying the movie, you know, there's no reason for people to like, sometimes, you know, you expect people to feel agitated, like maybe people are feeling agitated, like a certain amount of agitation is good as we're talking about the sad decline of the company. But like if people are too agitated, it's not good, because you still want people to be like able to sit through it and enjoy themselves. And, you know, I think if a character is bothering people so much, I mean, sometimes I'm watching a movie and I'm just thinking, oh, I cannot stand that character. And sometimes I think it's not the intention of the filmmakers. Like maybe they thought you were going to like this character. So we wanted him, we wanted everybody to look their best also. Like we wanted everybody that we interviewed to feel good about their participation. We didn't want anybody to feel tricked and, you know, Edwin's family, they're like some of our biggest supporters now. Like his kids and his grandkids and great grandkids and nieces and they love the movie, and it's like preserving their family history. So I think it's a combination of, you know, not wanting to irritate people too much, and then also, you know, wanting to make sure everybody's on board and everybody's happy, because nobody got paid to do this. You know, people donated their time and their likeness and their materials, and yeah, just want everybody to feel good in the process. And I think we had also, because I'm a pretty sensitive person, and so probably more than other movies, like if you had to like give a scorecard to my team members and the participants in the movie, and they were like to score me, like I'd probably get a pretty high score, because I really listened to everybody, and it was really important to me to like have everybody feel like they were be a part of the decision making, and be a team.
Very inspiring. By the way, if you have a question and you can't do it technically, just raise your hand. We'll find you. Do we have any questions or comments? I think, Naomi, you had a question before. You have to unmute.
Yeah, I'm amazed at how young you are, and to have been interested in something like the Automat. But also, I wonder, how did you finance the film, given also your youth?
So that was also part of why it took so long, because we did not have all the money, and we were getting rejected for so many grants and funding opportunities. And I couldn't, you know, sometimes I can turn a no into a yes, but I was not able to, you know, turn those funding rejections into yeses. And that was a really big problem. And in our country, there is not as much funding for this type of work as in other countries. We're probably not the worst in the world, but we're really not the best. And it was a lot of pressure on me to, you know, come up with the money. And we did a Kickstarter campaign that raised, I think, $55,000. And I got a little bit of, you know, foundation money and a small grant. But, you know, it was a lot of, you know, personal money and having to pay people back. You know, it was not pretty. And, you know, I have to have this conversation, you know, a lot, because we're still trying to recoup the money that, you know, was spent to make the movie. You know, the movie is not profitable. And you know, I think you know, people feel, or I think they think because it's on HBO Max or whatever, it must mean we got a big, huge deal, and we didn't. And you know, we have a problem right now, especially just because there is so much content out there right now. I mean, I have a lot of opinions on this, but in my opinion, one of the problems with there being all these different streaming platforms is that there's a demand for so much. There needs to be so much content, but there's still only so much money, you know, to make it all. And then as a result, you know, everybody's getting squeezed to, and then there's just not, you would think there's more money to make everything, but not necessarily. So, and also right now the streamers want to do original content where they're in control of everything from the first to the last day. And so it's concerning to me because we have wonderful films like ours that can't find homes. And also it's concerning from like a journalistic perspective. It's really great to have documentary filmmakers who are separate from the studio system, and, you know, we have the freedom to, you know, do whatever you know, our process. You know, our priority is to, you know, tell the truth and the best story possible. And we're not motivated by, you know, how many clicks is this going to get, or how many seconds are people going to watch this, or so I'm concerned. And part of my solution is that I'm also in my own filmmaking, I'm starting to explore fiction filmmaking as well, because I think to make a living on only doing documentaries, there are people who do it, and I think it's such a hustle. And yeah, I mean, that is a lot of hustling if you want to only be a documentary filmmaker. So
that was very frank and honest. Thank you. Do we have any other questions or comments or memories?
Carol Jacob, we loved having your name in the end credits. Carol just commented on how the Kickstarter backers' names were in the end credits. That was also since I'm being so frank, one of the big lessons I learned that I'll never do again is don't try to make your end credits yourself. There's a science and a math to them, and our end credits are shaky, and it's because there's an algorithm to end credits, and our algorithm is off. So there's like companies and software that specialize in end credits, so you have to use that.
Who knew?
I know. Now I know. I'll never make that mistake again. But I'm happy that Carol was able to see her name, and the credits weren't so shaky she couldn't see her name.
Does anyone who unmuted want to ask anything? I know we have a few people who unmuted. We have Sharon and Rafi. Do you have any comments or questions? If not, Naomi, you have another question. Can you unmute? There we go.
I do. How did you know that Colin Powell and Ruth Bader Ginsburg had such fond memories of the Automat? How did you know to interview them?
I actually did not know that they were going to have fond memories, but something that I did was cast the net really wide. I wrote to and called and emailed, and literally like I would try to hit everyone, not just send an email. I would try to mail a letter, leave a call, and for everybody to try to increase the chances that people would get back to me. And so I didn't know, but I had a suspicion because I saw Ruth Bader Ginsburg in the documentary Sturgeon Queens about Russ and Daughters. And I figured if she ate at Russ and Daughters, she probably also ate at the Automat. So that's where I got that idea. Now, Colin Powell, I saw his name on a Wikipedia page of famous people from New York. And when I was going through that Wikipedia page, I thought he'd be a really great interview. You know, why don't I try contacting him? But I also, you know, I contacted a lot of other people from that Wikipedia page too. And, you know, in the end, it was self-selecting. The people who, you know, responded and eventually said yes were the ones who really had, you know, who really cared and had something to say. So it was Basharat, really.
I was curious, Lisa, my experience with automats are kind of trendy places who do an automat format. One that I can think of are Brooklyn Dumplings, who they serve their dumplings in kind of an automat way where you get your receipt and then there are cubbies, and then you, when the order is ready, you scan your receipt and the lid opens and you can take out your food. And I think a lot of other businesses too are starting it kind of as a new trendy thing to do. Do you think that in that way these kinds of things might come back in a new way, kind of less as a gag and more as a real thing? Because it seems like people would love this now, you know, that late night eating is getting more and more popular.
So people really associate Horn and Hardart's Automat with these new Automat concepts popping up. Me personally, I see them as really different because the Horn and Hardart Automat to me was not really about the machines, but it was about, you know, the whole situation. You know, it was about people sitting with each other and, you know, really affordable food and really beautiful spaces and lots of diversity and all different types of people. And it, you know, the meaning to me of what is the Horn and Hardart Automat is so loaded that I just see them as so, you know, distant from, you know, kind of these more recent Automat, you know, the resurgence. So for me, the priority is more about, you know, telling the story of what we had than, you know, trying to literally bring back automats, because I just think that, you know, the spirit of the Horn and Hardart Automat is not going to exist in any of these like automat concepts that we have today. But if somebody wanted to open an automat that like where people, because a lot of these concepts now, people take the food to go. So, you know, at a certain point for Horn and Hardart, they did do takeaway service, but that's really not what Horn and Hardart was all about. It was, you know, you ate it there. And, you know, we don't talk about it in the movie, but part of the problem with the coffee in the end, you know, when Chock full of Nuts started to become really popular for coffee in New York City, Chock full of Nuts was offering coffee in to-go cups. You didn't have to drink the coffee inside of Chock full of Nuts. And, you know, Horn and Hardart, it represents not necessarily people taking their time more, but, you know, today we're so fast paced in a way that it's a different world than the world that, Horn and Hardart was in. There was, I think, a little bit more of a balance, and it was a little more acceptable then to, take a proper, lunch. And today we're eating at our desks. And so, but yeah, I think, of course, I'm all for late night eating options, but to me, it's not necessarily important that they're, automats late at night. But
I think- yeah,
maybe
I
I'm a
think
little
Brad-
controversial on that. I'm a purist, I like the automat as it was,
We have some hands up. Let's start with Dorothy. Can you
Yes.
There we go.
Yeah, I wanted to, I was really fascinated by the interview with Howard Schultz. And I thought that was just so interesting how he segued from going to an Automat to Starbucks. And I wanted to see what Lisa had anything to add to that. I found that interview just amazing.
It was also amazing to conduct that interview. And this was, again, a situation where I was not telling him what to say. He just kept saying, the Automat was my inspiration for Starbucks. And he just kept saying it in different ways. And like, it's really genuine. Like, that was really important to him. And I actually do personally see, I know this is, again, a little controversial because a lot of people have different opinions about Starbucks, especially right now. But like, let's put that aside and let's just think about the concept, which is like a place that's Starbucks. It's really clean looking. It's very eye-catching. The display cases are very, they're very pleasing. The merchandise is really beautiful. It's different in every city. I really think Starbucks, and I think Howard Schultz, he really was like, I want to create something magical for the people that come in there. I want, people are very attached to their Starbucks and to their drinks. And I think that Starbucks was one of the first companies in the restaurant business that created an app that became, the Starbucks app is such it's been so integrated into the business, and it's people earn rewards points on it, and they can kind of cut the line by ordering ahead. He's found a way to like make it fun for adults, because in the end of the day, adults are still kids. So for me personally, it's remarkable to think that the Automat went on to influence one of the largest food and beverage businesses in the whole world. For me, again, that was really kind of gratifying because I wasn't expecting to stumble upon that. I didn't know that from day one. Nobody knew that from day one. That was like a discovery. And
I just ask, and you can sit there for as long as you want to. So that is really very important. But how did you connect to him? That's what I was curious about.
So I was working at the Jewish Community Center in Seattle at the time. And, Starbucks is one of the big kind of corporate companies in Seattle. We have Amazon, Microsoft, Nintendo, Costco, Starbucks. So we all know people at all those places. And the CEO of the Jewish Community Center used to be an executive at Starbucks. And so I was the Jewish Community Center connected me to the office of Howard Schultz. And I had too many connections to Howard Schultz. It's like, who's going to help? Because my boss at the Jewish Community Center, not the CEO, her, tennis partner was like a ghostwriter or a co-writer on one of Howard Schultz's memoirs. So, I just
knew that there was some kind of connection.
There was no problem at all getting to
but
Howard
you knew
Schultz.
there was some kind of a connection to him and the Automat.
I didn't know until I stumbled upon it. I was we were filming an interview of Marianne Hardart, the co-author of the coffee table book, The Automat. And while we were packing up all the equipment, she said, "You know about Howard Schultz, right?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" And she grabbed from her bookshelf his memoir and she opened it up to the first page. There's a picture of the Automat, and he dedicated that book. I'm dedicating this book to the Automat. And this is years ago that, he published this. So, and the way she found out about the connection is his team reached out to her to invite her to his New York book signing. He wanted a Hardart to be there. And that's how she found out about it. So, but he was just so, it's something I've also learned from this is that like celebrities are like, they're like us and they're real people. And all the people that I interviewed were just, I'd say the one that was kind of like the most, maybe like starstruck situation, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She walked into that room with a posse of like beautiful, like lawyer women. She sat down for like 3 minutes and then she was out of there. Or maybe it was 5 minutes, but it was so fast and she really had an entourage. So that was, and then there was just so many, when we interviewed her, there were so many restrictions. We had to provide the Supreme Court with a list of every single piece of equipment that we were entering into the room with. And, they needed our social security numbers and they wouldn't let me bring in a photographer. Like there was just, there was, that shoot was like a big, I'm not going to say hassle, but like, there was a lot of restrictions on us to film in the Supreme Court.
We
Jennifer,
don't have a lot of time left.
Lucky.
We have last questions.
Jennifer, would you like to unmute?
Or any comments on the chats?
Well,
Hi,
I'm here
Jennifer.
now. Hi. So this was fascinating. The documentary was fascinating. And if anyone hasn't seen it, I highly suggest that you see it. And there's this hour has flown and it was just so enlightening. So Lisa, thank you for your hard work.
There have been some very nice comments from you all like throughout this, just, I really appreciate all the congratulations and the thank yous. It was a lot of, many years of hard work, and it just makes me feel really good now that people are, able to enjoy the movie. And I also really appreciate, like, a lot of you in the comments have like been suggesting ideas for like screenings we can do. And if any of you know any like organizations anywhere in the country that are, could potentially be interested, whether they're libraries or film festivals, please, make any introductions you'd like to. My email is lisa@automatmovie.com. You're also, if any of you didn't get to ask your question, just shoot me an email and I'll get back to you. But yeah, I really thank the museum for putting on this event, and thanks to all of you for for supporting the movie. It's a lot of it's very grassroots. So if you like this event, please mention the movie to one of your friends. It's streaming for free on a lot of public libraries or universities offer Canopy, which is like educational Netflix. So it's for free on Canopy. It's for free on HBO Max. On Amazon, the rental is like $1.99, and you can get the DVD. You can borrow it from your library, but don't be a stranger. Lisa@automatmovie.com, and thank you to Lucy, Maya, and Sophie for organizing the event this evening on behalf of the museum.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
I think we all enjoyed it, and we're looking forward to seeing what you're going to come up with next.
Oh, well, hopefully I think I told Lucy, like, I'm a finalist right now to maybe direct another interesting Jewish documentary that I would actually not have to finance myself. Like,
Right.
So if that happens, I'll be back here and we can have another Jewish film chat. I'd love to keep being able to make, Jewish films. Part of the challenge is that, it's more of a niche audience, and especially with the streamers coming into control now, they want stuff that's just so broad that's going to appeal to everyone. So it's going to become, I think, increasingly harder to produce Jewish documentaries, because there's just going to be less, it's going to be harder to sell them. So we just have to, I don't know. I'm hoping that the streamer, it's not working for them either. They're having financial problems as well. All of us in the entertainment industry, we're all just hoping that there's going to be a shakeup and mergers of the different streamers, and because it's ridiculous right now, so yeah, that and if you're in New York City, and if you want to see the film again, we have a really fun screening coming up at Temple Emmanuel on the Upper East Side, where there's going to be a brunch, like a really nice kosher style brunch with, lox and bagels and pastries and fruit, and it'll be a lot of fun. And so that's in April, and I'll be there, and the food's going to be really good. So I don't know if any of you have ever been to Emmanuel, you'll know that the food there is always very good.
All right. Thank you so much, Lisa, Lucy, and to all of our audience members, and of course, Maya, for moderating the questions and answers. Like we mentioned earlier during the program, we will have another Cinema Chats coming up later in March, all about Armageddon Time, which is a wonderful film if you haven't seen it yet. You can sign up and learn about our public programs via the links that Maya has just put in the chat. And coming up next week, there is a new biography about Irving Berlin, about his life as a composer and also as an immigrant. So it'll be very interesting. It'll be on Zoom. So those of you who are in England and Santa Fe and all over, you can join us there. And then for those of you who are local, we will have a Lower East Side food walking tour. So we'll be able to learn about the history and also nosh on some goodies. If you need kosher style food, just let us know. You can email us at contact@eldridgestreet.org. And then further along in March, we're really excited to have another walking tour in celebration of Women's History Month. It's called Mamas with Chutzpah. So that's going to be really fun. We bring that walking tour out only once a year. There's only 20 tickets available. So if you are interested in coming, be sure to grab your tickets now. And finally, we have our upcoming concert that's in celebration of Purim, in addition to Women's History Month. And it's going to be a concert in person of Judeo-Spanish music, featuring the music by Alhambra. They'll be playing historic music. They'll be playing love songs and wedding music, and it'll be a wonderful, wonderful event. So I very much hope that all of you will be able to come and be there, and hopefully we'll see you at our next Cinema Chat. So once again, thank you all for joining us tonight.
Thank you,
Bye.
everybody.